Hey everybody, it is Remy from Unheard Sirens Incorporated. How you guys doing? Hopefully you guys can hear us right now. This is our first time, both me and Sebastian from SNS. I thank him for
Hello.
joining me today. How are you, sir?
Very good. Yourself?
Awesome, awesome. So yeah,
Excellent.
this is both of our first time with Twitch, so hopefully this is working out okay. Let us know in the chat right now if you can see us and hear us
Yes,
right
I'm
now.
having some Wi-Fi issues here at home, so sorry in advance if there's any kind of interruption.
Yeah, Sebastian and I were talking about the issues with Wi-Fi and Wi-Fi companies and broadband companies seems to be a universal problem.
Yeah, it's a real
It's
problem. What can you
yeah,
do?
nasty bastards. What can you do? Anyway, so I guess let's. I mean, obviously the whole reason we're doing this, most of you know, Sebastian and I we decided to trade remixes recently. I did a remix of his track, Amorfati, and he did a remix of our track, Alien Life. And it was a really cool experience trading, our creativity back and forth in that way. And yeah, and Sebastian, I hope you you'll. You can't really see this now, but you'll probably be able to see when you see the video back later. I gave you the full SNS aesthetic. You're in black and white. Up the
Yes,
contrast a little bit. I did the whole
fantastic.
See, it's
Excellent.
seeing you in color just would not have felt right. Like it'd be
No,
like
I don't. That's not how I see the world, and it's not, certainly not how I see myself. So I
exactly.
appreciate that. Thank you.
It would have been like seeing like an uncle who has like really long hair and like he shaves his head. You'd be like, who is this person? That's
Yeah,
kind of what it would have
something of
been
the
like.
sort.
So
Yes.
something like that, yeah. But
Yeah.
so I guess I'll open up the conversation with this. Speaking of your aesthetic, I was Google searching you recently. I forget why. I think I was trying to like just find out certain things about you because I had to list certain info as far as like songwriting credit for like the
Yeah.
remix in order to make sure that it distributes the funds properly and all that. And
Yeah.
I discovered some of your photography work, some of your black and white photography work
Oh yes,
that you
yes,
did.
yes,
How long ago was that?
yes.
When did you get started with
That was a
photography?
few years ago, actually. I, I, I was taking a break from music for a while, and I sort of decided to dedicate some time to explore photography, and I did get into it kind of full on, and I never kind of connected it with my music, and the black and white thing, and the high contrast sort of thing is coming from that from that background in photography. But I wasn't expecting it to happen. It just sort of made sense, um, and yeah, it's great that it played a part on this. Otherwise, it would have been just a little excursion into photography. But it's a passion, yeah. And I tried, I'm still trying to um, use that in my own work to Instagram is very image friendly, so I thought, yeah, try and make it so. The problem is that you got to keep that consistency and give a clear message. And if you start showing all the photography work and it kind of strays too far from the music, so I'm trying to integrate those. The whole world of Instagram is a whole kind of language to learn as a
Mm-hmm.
musician, music, but
Yeah,
social media is a completely different beast. They should teach it as
yeah,
part of being a musician nowadays. Things have changed so much, haven't they?
yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And yeah, it didn't surprise me to learn that you had that photography background, having seen like your videos and your general visual aesthetic. You seem to have that eye anyway with like the video content that you
Yes.
were putting out, and so yeah, it wasn't
Yeah.
surprising at all. And I mean, if anything, obviously I think that gave you a leg up because a lot of musicians when they're starting out, they're just like, I produce music, I don't do visuals or video or photos or whatever, and they have to kind of learn those skills, especially nowadays when it's like independent musicians kind of have to do everything themselves. And yeah, so
Yeah, I mean, well, the same with you because you have a background in filmmaking as well,
I do, yeah.
and that's also how you develop such a distinctive sort of image for your project, because the truth is that it takes a couple of years at least to just get started with a clear identity in terms of image, you know. So that's after you've developed an identity as a producer, as a songwriter.
100%.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, and it definitely took us a while to develop our identity. For those who don't know, Unheard Sirens Incorporated, we started our life in 2013 as just a solo project started by me called US. It was just US. And the whole idea was that those could stand for different things. And so that, what you talk about, that whole journey to find identity has been quite a while. In fact, our last album we released in 2020 was called Regeneration, it was sort of all about finding identity or changing your identity and finding, growing past who you've been previously and being almost someone completely new, even though you're still the same person.
yeah, wow, right, yeah, amazing. And how did you come up with this color sort of palette, this region of color, just so distinct, so unique?
Yeah, I don't know. It just I've always been kind of into kind of teals and purples and stuff like that, and getting into the kind of music we're getting into synthwave. The aesthetic lends itself towards like big, you know, bright neon colors, and so that's kind of, we were kind of going there anyway, so it was just kind of like leaning a little bit more into that and saying
It's somewhat the only artist that I can connect it with is Prince to some degree.
Yeah.
Is he an influence at all? No?
Yeah, totally. He totally is, for sure. Yeah, I'd say Prince is a big influence, at least on my aesthetic and a little bit on the music. Obviously, David Bowie is the biggest one. He is the musical sun that all the other planets of my influence revolve around. So,
yeah, of course, yeah. He's when he passed some 5 years ago, that was so huge here. I mean, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was one of the biggest events in that I've seen in many years of living here in the UK. You know,
I can only imagine. Yeah, it was
people crying, you know, and offices all over the country, out there in the streets everywhere, you know, playing his songs, and it was crazy. I mean,
yeah, it was one of those things. Is like I already, you know, I was already influenced by him, but the influence only grew after he passed. It was almost like I felt this calling to kind of put a little bit of that Bowieism back into the world in some sort of way, in some sort of small way. You know, take that influence. I think that's the best way you can honor people who have passed, is kind of, and almost make them immortal in a way by like carrying on that influence. Like think of like what would they have done, or like, you know, I don't know, like that's kind of always been my thought process behind, you know, death and loss. And so
absolutely, and I think your singing as well there's an element in that you know, that kind of theatricality that he had.
Yeah, for sure.
Obviously you're lucky to have are you a baritone? Or
I am,
yeah, so that helps obviously, but yeah, now I mean, it's a huge influence for me as well, Bowie. You know, I grew up just obsessing over him, over his work. But it's funny one with him because it's that ability to contribute so many different kinds of things to music. It isn't just that he wrote good songs, or it isn't just about how many different kind of images or styling the different sort of styles that he developed over the years. But there are so many different levels that are a real unique kind of contribution to music that he kind of brought to the game, and it is incredible. I mean, things that influence you might be quite different from some things that I'm influenced by. So, for example, my singing isn't really related to his singing, or the styling isn't related to his styling, and also not even the sound, not even his sound at any point has been a really important influence for me as I developed into disco, electronic sort of synthesizer disco, the disco sound that I kind of more or less stuck to over the years. a little bit of that singer-songwriter aspect that he kind of started with and kind of kept going over the years. I think initially he just wanted to be the next Bob Dylan. Or
Yeah, he was definitely he. If I'm remembering correctly, he was trying to kind of do that Bob Dylan kind of, I guess, post hippie kind of singer songwriter kind of thing, but it didn't really work. And it was when he found like rock, when he found the glam rock thing, that was when he really came into his own. But yeah, I mean, let's transition a little bit because we're talking about influences. Like, who influenced you, or what influenced you at first? If you can think all the way back to when you maybe started in music, what was the initial thing that was like, I need to do that?
Wow, that's great. I mean, I would say it was quite a few different artists and so on. But interestingly, I started with, because I'm originally Argentinian. I grew up in Argentina. It was Argentinian artists. Argentina has a really long and big sort of tradition of rock music, alongside the folklore music, which is really amazing, and so it's a massive tradition of that as well. It's not as well known, I think, outside Latin America, but Argentina has a huge, like 50, 60 years of rock music, and it's been big from pretty much the beginning. It was a lot harder at the beginning because we had all the dictatorships and there was a lot of repression. But one of the artists was this surrealist sort of singer-songwriter called Luis Alberto Spinetta. And he tragically passed away at the age of 62. A lot of them are dying very early on, which is kind of sad. Bowie, Spinetta, Prince, everyone. But he was my first influence. And he was just a guy with a guitar. He sometimes a concert would be just him and his guitar playing like 9-10 minute songs sometimes, crazy stuff, back from the prog kind of prog rock thing, but very much within the singer-songwriter tradition, but with this very, very strong element of surrealism. And that's been an ongoing theme, even after I kind of sort of distanced myself somewhat from the singer-songwriter world and went full on into the synthesizer, and particularly the disco thing. The element of singer-songwriter kind of remains, in the sense that, to me, the song is the most important thing, and I think the song is the form for me. I have written instrumental music. I have written some other things, and I'm very interested in music, in like instrumental dance music and that kind of thing. That is a huge influence. Electro music, techno, that kind of thing. The Detroit sound, tradition, Chicago to some degree, but the song is the thing that I've always keep. As I would say that the central thing for me is the song, and disco comes after that as something that works with the song. The song is probably the most important thing for me.
100%.
And that's quite different from, you got the same, I can imagine,
like I 100%, like I think like the song and the songwriting is most important, and like the genre and whatever else you want to put on it is just kind of the coat of paint on the song you're making. Like I've always kind of felt that way, and that's especially the thing I take from Bowie, and that's what I want to do, like with my, as far as like career trajectory, is I want to have so many different, like I just told my wife last night, like me and her, we're allergic to making songs that all sound the same. Like we can't. I couldn't imagine going 20-30 years down the line still making music that sounds like what we're making. Nothing wrong with what we're making, but like I see people who are just like kind of, they just become retro versions of themselves. Like, granted, I love Robert Smith, but he just looks like a melted version of his former 80s self right now, and it's kind of like, I don't know. I just think it's kind of, I think there's so much more complexity to an artist to go in sort of many different avenues. You don't have to stay in one place as much as people would like you to stay the same forever. You can't.
I mean, that was the interesting thing, is that something happened to me about quite a few years ago now, that when I did this change from the songwriting thing to the synthesizer, the disco thing. Once I had my kind of disco epiphany, I really had stuck to that sound. The Italo Disco sound has been huge for me. It's been life-changing. Once I kind of discovered, or rather rediscovered, that sound, it was really a life-changing thing. I was lucky to meet a lot of the producers and DJs from the original time, and I know some still. And it's been amazing to know them, but it has been hugely influential for me. But interestingly, lately, I am beginning to sort of open my mind a bit more, and kind of, I was very bored with the mainstream sound for many years of the mainstream production kind of sound, and just by coincidence, or sort of having a few conversations with people here and there, I always like to keep an ear for other points of view and try things out. I started coming across some mainstream, what you would call the mainstream chart kind of sound from the last, say, 5 years or so, that they're doing some really interesting stuff. They're doing some really radical stuff. And from the point of view of sound production, not so much from the screenwriting side of things, but very much from the sound production side of things. They're doing some extraordinary stuff in the last, say, 5-7 years. And that's increasingly becoming something of interest to me. And that's sort of where I'm hoping to take my sound from the sound kind of production point of view, becoming quite radical in the choices, not minimal as such, but radical in terms of choosing just a few elements to put at the front of everything and then layer everything below. It's a lot of work, but it's really exciting what you get. You get this very rich kind of textures. I come from a more minimalist sort of mindset, but you get this rich textures with or a product remains really radical, and it's quite encouraging. A lot of these producers, some of these producers, have been influenced by Aphex Twin. I think Ian Kirkpatrick is one of them, and he's done a lot of, I don't know, Selena Gomez and Ariana Grande, people like that. But they are influenced by Aphex Twin, and they bring this to this kind of easy listening kind of songwriting work, and they're doing some really interesting things with it. Yeah. So, in some ways, I would probably say that some of these productions are the most interesting things I've seen, or I've heard, sorry, from the point of view of sound lately, which is crazy. The mainstream used to be like, no way, stay away from all that. Yeah. If you open up your ears, then we'll find some really, even Max Martin, who I really didn't care for at all in the past. The people that he's collaborating with now, in the last, again, 5-7 years, they're bringing this kind of really radical sort of way of looking at production. And I think it's from that point of view quite interesting. So if you can adapt your own song, which is also evolving in a certain way, to that kind of attitude to sound, there's something really quite exciting happening, I think, potentially in the world of music.
Yeah, 100%. Like I'm loving the ways people are playing with sound and production right now. Like that was kind of the thing with like synthwave, is a lot of like those kind of 80s synthesizer really retro sounds have been kind of a joke for so long that now people are embracing, like, no, there's actually really cool like vibes you can create with these old school sound synthesizers and give it this new life. And also what's mainly interesting to me is not just the stuff that's trying to sound like stuff that was on the radio in a movie in the 80s. That stuff's pretty cool too, but like I love that there people taking those sounds and doing something new with it, making a sound that hasn't quite existed before. It sounds a little bit like a little bit nostalgic, a little bit retro, but then they put a new spin on it. That's the stuff that really excites me.
Well, this is what I've noticed about your work, and that's what I think. I actually haven't heard that much of this, out there. I hear a lot of quite well-established sort of genres around this synthwave thing, and I was kind of a bit reluctant with synthwave for quite a while, because I was doing that kind of 80s sound, but mixed with metal and other, well, some of them do this kind of thing, but in a much rawer kind of underground sort of sound before that whole thing kick-started, so to me it was like what came after in a way, and now I'm respecting and appreciating. I'm beginning to understand that also most of these artists are quite underground themselves. They don't really, they subscribe to this aesthetics, but they don't wealthy or anything like that. It's not as corporate as you might think. It's a bit samey, admittedly. But this is where I thought that you guys were taking things in a different direction. You were not just bringing different kind of song to it, but also from the production point of view, I think you're integrating some elements from that sound to some other elements that are quite foreign. I can't actually quite place them.
Yeah, because as far as the thing with genre and different sounds, like that was the whole thing, is like we've only very recently started to kind of lock into a sound of like, let's try and incorporate synths and stuff like that, because even before that, like we didn't really have a genre. Like this project started very much as this experimental little baby. I'm just gonna make whatever music I want to make, and sometimes that included like hip hop elements or like distorted guitars or whatever samples that spoke to me that I wanted to include in a song. It was kind of like building a song was kind of like a genre salad. There's just like a lot of different things going on. It's only recently we've started to kind of like define the genre. One, because I just found an interesting pocket I like to play in, but two, just frankly, as a music creator, as a musician, it's way easier to try and break in with at least songs that are in a similar pocket versus trying to go all over the place. It's a little bit harder to market yourself, to find your audience. It's after you find your audience, then you can kind of do whatever the hell you want. But at least that's how I found it.
I kind of face a similar issue because I feel very strongly about cold wave and dark wave, minimal synth, those kind of minimal wave kind of genres. And I've got my disco sort of background, and they don't really, they don't fit in. It's the light and the dark. It's not, from the point of view of genre, they're not the same thing. But you feel this very strongly, and the best songs come from whatever you're feeling. So it isn't a matter so much of being experimentally inclined or wanting to experiment with different genres, but rather feeling very strongly two different musical identities, which kind of fits with my philosophical sort of background, this anti-binary thing where you're one thing or the other. But it's as you say, it's difficult to explain to audiences that haven't warmed up to what you're doing, what the hell you're doing. Especially in the age of singles, where you're releasing singles, which I love. I love this single every couple of months thing. But if you're not consistent with genre, that's an issue. So I'm kind of negotiating with myself most strongly about.
Yeah, 100%.
And then cope with whatever consequences come from doing that. I think, in terms of, as you say, of getting people to become aware of what you do.
Yeah, 100%. I guess let's transition. Let's go into kind of like how I guess we initially connected, and then like how the remixes came about. I mean, for me, I just remember finding your account on Instagram. Like one of the interesting things you had posted about like the whole obsession with nostalgia being kind of an illusion or whatever, and like there's and something like that.
I remember
what it was. Yeah. But I guess like just tell it from your perspective, because it's been so long. I honestly I have trouble like remembering back that far. But yeah, just how do you remember like the connection initially happening?
I think that was that post. I did this post where I spoke about. I have a problem with the term retro, in the sense that I think the term retro is retro, or I think the term retro is an old thing that has expired in this day and age. I don't think that people should carry on thinking in terms of what's current and what's retro. What is the now sound and what is the yesterday sound. I think that's ridiculous, because with the incredible variety of genres, of scenes, of micro scenes, micro genres, sub-genres that there are out there, and they're all so accessible nowadays, because you don't have to you can strip. They're not wanting to accept the fact that changed completely. And I've been kind of the music for some of the music that I did with my other band Heartbreak was very much considered a retro thing, but it really wasn't, because you can't actually think of music that was produced at the time that sounded exactly like that, because there was an element of metal, an element of surrealism, and an anti-binary sort of stance on stage, and there was the whole theme of saturation, cultural saturation, information overload, and all this kind of thing, wreaking havoc and liberating us from the tyranny of the new. So there's no more new and there's no more old, and that's what's changed. It's sort of the idea of time as we used to understand it, particularly in relation to kind of trends and music, so-called music history. It's in philosophy and cultural studies, they talk about the end of history. I think there's something to be said about the end of music history. And I think that's what's the most interesting. There's so much freedom right now that we can, we have the potential to really focus on what's greatest about music. That is writing the best possible music, and not having to release album fillers and all these songs that aren't as strong, because they kind of worked within the general. Now we can really focus on the song. We can really focus on every minute of music that we experience, what it truly does to us. And it's very much about the music potentially, but it's not really happening, because there's this need to construe sort of a timeline for things where there is no more timeline. I think it's ridiculous to think of a succession of historical events nowadays. Everything's mixed, because we have access to everything, to the past, to now.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like, we hopefully will approach that, like, an era of what you're talking about, where it's like we're post music history, we're post using the term retro. It's all just whatever. People are making stuff. It may sound to someone who's older, it may sound like something from the 80s or the 90s or the 70s, or pick a decade, but like it doesn't. It's all kind of fair game. It doesn't need to be. You don't need to, even if you're even trying to be new or current. Like, what is that anymore? Like, because people incorporate like funk and all that stuff. Like, I love me some funk. I don't think that should ever like go out of style. You know what I mean? Like, there's certain genres that like
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think of out of style these days, I think. But I think the problem, the reason why people do that is because there is a bigger question beyond this question that they kind of are clinging on to for dear life. And that is the question, what is music? What is all this? And this is where I'm kind of trying to go with SNS Sensation, to go at the very bottom of that pit, descend all the way down to what is music and to what is, existence, obviously, so that's kind of partly what I'm talking about when I talk about existentialist themes in the music. It's that freedom and that bravery to go all the way and to be as honest as you possibly can with regards to what are the important questions, and you know, however difficult these questions are to answer, or impossible even. But that's when, you know, and that's when the whole issue of the impossible, kind of the concept of the impossible, which I've been dealing with, is emerging. If you find impossible questions, these have to be the best questions. If you find impossible goals in life, surely these are the best goals to aim for. What could be more exciting and inspiring and keep you engaged and interested than that which isn't possible, isn't ever achievable? Because everything that is achievable, you know, it's ultimately a disappointment most, you know, or a very short-lived relief, or even if it's pleasing to go through a bit of success, that's great, but eventually it's more of the same. But in the impossible, this kind of search continues forever. So you know, that's when you don't know, what you can't hold on to trends or history or what's in style, what's out of style anymore, then you have to face the ultimate question, which is, what am I doing listening to this meaningless random sounds? And that's quite, I think that's really exciting. That keeps me inspired personally. The question, you know.
100%. I love that kind of limitless kind of approach. And again, you're exactly right. Especially right now, it's like you could say, like, you know, creativity and music and whatever is oversaturated. But I kind of love that so many people are embracing that they can be creative. There's no one telling them yes or no. Like it's all up to you, really. I think we should transition to talking about kind of like our remixes and how we kind of approached it, because we kind of took each other's songs and did very different things with them, and I think that's kind of interesting. So like,
the first time I heard Alien Live, you showed me one of the final drafts for it, the final, I don't know if it was the final mix, but and I really, sorry?
So I think that was either was very finalized or was very close to final just before the master.
But I really liked the song from the get-go, from the first listen. I thought there was something really vital that was building up, particularly in the chorus. This, which ended up being the swells that then I used in the remix. I mean, the swells had a big part of it, but it was the song, right? It was this. There was so much positivity in it. Eventually, I actually hadn't realized the first time I heard the song that this chorus was about love and connection. But obviously, it made perfect sense afterwards. I just found this energy, which was so vital and so truthful. And it reminded me slightly of some of the feelings that you get with the most euphoric 80s sort of songs. But it wasn't quite that. There was also an element of the 90s in it. There was just a very positive vibe, and there was no point in tying it to any time. It was just it was still vital. So whatever it was or wherever it came from. So yeah, after that, it just kept growing, and I started seeing that there was this story that you're telling, this narrative, and it isn't just one song. You seem to be telling the story in different parts. Each song is a part. But anyway, with Alien Live, there was a point where I realized that's it. You know, I really like this. I love the idea. You know, we were getting along so well on Instagram, on the DMs and so on. I think it makes perfect sense to do a remix. But what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? Because I really don't think. No, I think they've done it. They've honored the song. So it was the only way to go about it was to really just to do something as different as you could, but at the same time, can you do that with the original stems, not having to create much on your own? And I love that because you can do something that is so different, but it's so connected at the same time. If you use the original stems, you know.
No, I love the approach you did, and I feel like that was maybe the only way you possibly could take it, because our original version, it's very centric on that beat and that bass line and that cowbell in there, and so to take those away and start with the synth swells was such a left turn take and the perfect route to take, I think. And also I love it, made it stripped down and more like cathartic and emotional. You know,
I think with remixes, I think it's a great thing if you find something in the original, in the spirit of the original. As you said, they're two very different pieces, but they are addressing the same sort of sentiment.
Yeah,
which is you know, celebration of love. I think, I guess.
Yeah, and yeah, as far as like my approach to Amor Fati, I it's funny because like I love your I feel like you have a very defined aesthetic that feels like you, and also your approach to songwriting, which is very like philosophical driven and asking the big questions. It actually reminds me of the very early stuff I did with US, was very much in that kind of like incorporating like abstract ideas. You're way smarter about it than me. You like know way more about your stuff, like as far as like the philosophical underpinnings. You know, I barely, read books. Like I'm just like I was trying to approach kind of similar ideas, but I didn't really have the kind of knowledge that you approach it from. But no, I love the driving, like it had such a great energy to it. Your original Amor Fati track, and it had that kind of like disco-y kind of thing. And I heard that, and I was like, ooh, because I saw it as an opportunity, because I'm also, in addition to getting into kind of the poppier kind of songwriting, I'm also getting into a lot of the dark stuff. I'm big into like Perturbator and Carpenter Brute and the kind of dark synth like artists, and so I kind of saw this remix as like an opportunity to make a dark synth with a really like gritty kind of bass line and make it sound like you're like driving through hell kind of like song. So like I just wanted to like kind of do that with it.
It's funny you say that, because I wasn't actually aware of Carpenter Brute and Perturbator, but when I was releasing Amor Fati, I spoke to a music journalist, and he mentioned them. And when he heard the song, so it's funny that you heard that as well, and you took it all the way there. But from the conceptual, we were talking about the spirit of the song. I thought you really captured a certain hysterical energy to the song, which is totally consistent with what the song is. The song is, there's a kind of hysterical despair to it, I think. So, because the idea of Amor Fati, kind of love of fate, love whatever fate comes your way, at first sight seems, you hear it and you think, oh, that's like absolute harmony, pure harmony.
Yeah.
But when you read Nietzsche, I never know how to pronounce it. It's there's a lot of harmony.
Yeah, right.
It's a lot of it's quite a nervy guy.
Yeah, I definitely heard that there was definitely that element of nihilism in the original track that I kind of like.
Yes.
I was locking onto, and I'm like, I'm gonna just turn that dial up to 11.
I thought that was brilliant. I absolutely loved the remix, and I love that you captured that you could see that, because in other ways it is quite a pop song. It's like a disco pop. You could define it as disco pop in some ways.
Yeah.
So I was very pleased that the other element came through clearly enough, and I loved hearing how you took that and made that the premise of your remix.
Yeah.
It's great. I really, yeah. I thought also the visualizer you found for that, I was like, yeah, I mean, you know.
What do you know those streets that are being filmed there? Because like somebody like who saw the when it played on the Outworld Sounds Twitch yesterday said, "Are those UK streets?" And I'm like, "You would know better than me."
I don't actually. I mean, it could easily be the UK, but I don't. I'm not in those streets, so I don't know where it
Gotcha.
would be.
Where specifically in
Yeah.
the UK are you? I need to ask this so my wife will stop giving me a hard time about it.
Yes, I was. I moved to Colchester, which is North Essex, right between Essex and Suffolk, about 5 years ago. But before that, I lived in London
Gotcha.
for quite a few years. Yeah, so
Gotcha.
I'm the kind of person that has been very profoundly impacted by London. London is it really changes you, you know, in a good way, mostly.
Gotcha. Mostly.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've always wanted to visit. Someday I will. Someday I'll come over there for sure.
yeah.
We'll of course have to, you know, play a show. Maybe, you know, fingers crossed if these viruses go away. God damn it.
Yes, yes. Oh my, yeah. Yeah, it's been years. I mean, this is the most live thing I've done
yeah,
in years.
for sure.
I'm so excited today. It's like, oh my God, it's like a live show.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, I guess let's talk about like what the future holds. Like, where do you see what is your ultimate goal with as a musician with SNS?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I honestly, this is a bit weird, but I think Amor Fati sums it up. You know, I think ultimately what I'm trying to do is to enjoy what comes. You know, enjoy fate, try and love it if possible, right? Which isn't a very easy thing to do. No. So I'm trying to use the music and the video work for for existential purposes, and if that I you know live gigging has always been essential for me. It's been live, so that would be great to get a more regular gigging schedule. Limited though, because you know touring isn't all great, you know. So you need to find that balance that is so elusive in the life of a musician. Mm-hmm. Everyone kind of suffers from one sort of imbalance or another as a musician, and touring touring can be very harmful. It can be the best thing, but it can be really, really bad for you too. So you got to be really careful, and I think it's not talked about enough. There's a bit of a taboo around it because you're so privileged to be able to tour and so on. But it would be nice to have a more honest conversation about the good part and bad part. And so, you know, I like to gig, obviously, because gigging really is one of the most fulfilling experiences in life. But you know, within reason, and then to keep releasing music and to it's a funny one. You're about to release an album in a few months, aren't you?
An EP at least, yeah.
An EP, okay. I still haven't thought about albums, and I just don't know how things are going to evolve. Right. But at the moment, I feel like why an album? You know, for me, I'm thinking, do I really want to? Do I really feel that there's this whole concept around it? I think that all the songs really do need to be listened to together, or not. And at the moment, I don't feel so strongly about that. So I like to be a bit more, you know, to make an album if an album is necessary. Make an EP if there's a theme that runs through the songs and they work well together as a listen. But generally, I really, really like this new world of singles. I'm probably the only one, but I love the fact that you can pay so much attention to a 3-minute song, 4-minute song, and really value it for what it is. So much work goes into it.
No, 100%. Like I'm not one of those people that's like retro in that sense of like I'm attached to an album or whatever. I kind of like bundling certain songs. Like they tend to fit a certain theme around it. And if I'm putting them together as one release, whether it be an album or an EP, there's usually some sort of common thread there and some sort of reason why I'm grouping them together. I'm not just doing it willy-nilly. But absolutely, the singles are where it's at right now, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's weird. It's kind of like that's kind of been an up and down thing, because originally in music history, like the rock and roll single was the big thing. Like going back to the birth of it in the 50s and 60s, stuff like that. The 70s is really when the album started to come in, and then it's kind of gone back to singles. So I don't think, whatever, mode you digest your music or as an artist, whatever mode you want to release your music, I think is perfectly fine. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I personally think it has the potential to be very good for music, if this singles, because then it isn't about, okay, have you heard such an album or such other album? It's like, have you heard the song? So each song has to be really good. It has to connect. It has to do a good job of it has to use those 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever, however long you're using. With full consideration of the listener. And I think it's going to force people to write the best music they can. And perhaps it does give you a little bit more freedom in terms of, genre and so on, because if the song is good, and it should, and it's kind of decently well promoted, then it should do well within whatever following the project has.
100%. And and I'd say, you're speaking my language as far as like my goals and me and Juliet's goals with Unheard Sirens Incorporated, that we're on a very similar trajectory there. Like we definitely want to get back to playing shows again, whenever, however that can happen. I mean, we'll see. Oh God, these viruses. But I think definitely incorporating, like, if we can get the technical side working, if we can incorporate streaming into our, our live performance as well, like why not? Like why not get out to a bigger audience that way? Technology willing. But as far as like the overall goal, I just want to, as long as I'm here on this planet, I want to keep making music. I want to leave behind a whole legacy and a big diverse catalog of stuff, and hopefully make an impact in people's lives and make them lives for the better, and hopefully open some minds and expand the world when people feel like the world is too small, that kind of stuff. Open portals, all of that. So,
well, absolutely. I think in Unheard Sirens is a very clear mission, and it's a very positive thing you guys are doing. I think so. I think growing a following isn't an ego thing. I think, at least not just an ego thing.
Yeah.
I think you're clearly a real renegade. I think in the best possible sense. I think it's people need these communities, and they need the freedom. If there's anything that it really links Unheard Sirens to SNS Sensation, is this idea of freedom.
Yeah,
it's a freedom in different. It's a different sense of freedom, but it is very much about freedom. Just be, and the story that you are telling and the characters that you've got going are very unique, I think, and that's not just interesting, it's also liberating. It's about just do your thing, don't forget to do your thing. I know you've heard it a million times, but you're not freaking doing it.
Exactly.
You heard it, you think you know it, you think you might even think that you're doing it, but are you really doing it?
Yeah.
Because this is what it looks like if you're doing it. It looks different. It looks
exactly.
It looks unique.
If
you really do
it. You summed that up perfectly. You hit the nail on the head. Like I was thinking about this recently. Basically, even back to my earliest time making music in a little punk band, dirty, gritty punk band where we didn't know how to play our instruments. We were called Freak Flag. Even back then, I was writing songs that are about freedom. It was a very different kind of element, but a different approach to the same subject matter. But I was thinking about like, there's a subject matter that kind of ties most of my writing together, and it is that theme of freedom in one way or another. So like you get it. You completely got it. 100%.
Yeah, freedom is a tough one. Freedom is one of those that everyone assumes they know, and that makes it even harder than it already is.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, there's just and there's so many lies, you know. This is I don't want to get negative here, but there is so much pretense around freedom, what freedom actually looks like. Everyone is such a slave to their own idea of freedom.
Yeah, I
you know,
right? How ironic is that?
And I mean, I suppose this is partly, it's a funny one, because when you think SNS Sensation and Unheard Sirens, I think, you know, okay, there's a bit of an influence of that 80s pop sound, but it's very, very different, very, very different. But yet, as we speak, as we keep talking, and as we kept kind of developing a friendship online, I really start to see the connections, and it is very much about breaking the barriers of and how honest am I as well.
Yeah.
How much of this freedom, how much of this honesty is composed of what you would call the most honest or true inner kind of impulse, and how much of it is a response to something else, for example, a revenge against some humiliation or some pain or whatever. And how do those qualify? Are those, you know, it's, for example, revenge against an attitude that upset you as a young person, not as valid as the pure impulse. Which one is, why is it not that valid? I mean, do you not feel as strongly as you do that inner impulse to avenge and prove them wrong or whatever, you know? And this is so philosophical. I'm not saying there's an answer to it, but you know, it keeps us going. These questions. Yeah.
No, it's a fantastic question, and it's funny because like always be promoting. Our next single is kind of the counter argument to exactly what you just said, as far as like it's the counter of that freedom being a rebellion against something else. The song is called All We, and it's about that connection that we all have, that we're all part of, like in some way we're all kind of part of one ecosystem, one being, one like cellular, you know, whatever level. We're all, you know, part of the same thing. It's all, hence the title All We. So yeah, that's coming out in a couple weeks. So listen for that, folks. But yeah, I think we have been going for quite a while. So we want to maybe wrap up. Maybe we want to premiere our video, the video I created here. So as Sebastian created a kind of a re-edit of his Amor Fati video to my remix that I did, I also created a re-edit of some of our video material to the remix he did. And so I was thinking it would be cool as a nice little reward. This is the premiere of the video with for the Alien Life remix, which will also go up on I guess both of our YouTube channels, right? This coming Friday.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Perfect. All right, so we're gonna premiere that.
Yeah.
Right now.
Just fell to earth again, concrete around my feet again. I hate when that shit happens, God, I hate when that shit happens. touch. My disguise is wearing thin, I've been pretending too much, and I'm starting to feel like an imposter. Yeah, I'm starting to feel like an imposter. You and me, we're so tired of acting, you and me. We like to laugh at the earthlings, you can understand my language. You seem to understand my language. Have I discovered some alien life like me? Have I discovered some alien life like me?
That
Like I
music
said,
video, I know I keep going on about it, but you really nailed it with that. It really was one of my favorite music videos in a long time. Just the experience of watching it and thinking, wait, how is this working? It's this shaky camera in this, there's no color. What is it? It was really a revelation for me. Like, wow, if you can really find an idea like that, it can be so strong that it don't need a camera stabilizer or anything like that. Just go and make things happen.
Yeah.
it was, you know, I'm still thinking about that video every now and again. It stayed with me. It's a really
Thank
impressive
you
piece
so
of
much.
work.
Yeah,
I think.
it's been amazing to watch the response to that one. Like beyond like my wildest dreams. Like I had this vision for it, and I knew it was going to take some bravery to actually get out there and do it. You know, being very introverted and going out there and kind of dancing a bit like a fool. You know, and you know, on a downtown, it's Charlottesville. That pedestrian mall is kind of like the center of town, and so to do that was kind of like it's going to be risky but worth it. And like after we shot it, I wasn't sure if I had done what I'd wanted to do, and I was uneasy about it. And but then just seeing the response from everybody, just seeing that how it translated so well was just like really, it was just really amazing, heartwarming to see.
Yeah, no, it's special. I've watched a lot of music videos, and you know, I think a lot about that kind of thing because I make my own. And you know, it's when something really takes off in that way. You know, obviously the song was very strong to begin with, but it's yeah. Anyway, just a really special piece of video work. The music video is. I'll be honest. Most music videos they are okay, or you know, they might be quite interesting, but you know, when something's special, that's what this music video has. That's where you got those reactions. That genuine reaction is what you see when you that's actually special.
Absolutely, yeah.
That made me feel something human. You know, it really goes beyond the, you know. Yeah. Anyway, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That means so much, and I wish that for both of us. I hope we can both keep creating work that connects in that way and that has that humanity and just goes beyond, you know, the noise, you know. So I think we should probably, you know, wrap this up. We've been going for almost an hour and a half here. But it's been an amazing time. Like even technical issues aside, it's flown by. It's been a joy to talk to you, my friend.
It really has been. Yeah, I loved it myself. Yes.
Awesome. So plug time to plug what you got. Like where can people find you? Where can people connect with you?
Yes, we can add the links, I suppose, to the YouTube or the
Sure.
But Instagram is the best, the first sport I think of entries. SNS _ disco pop _ noir, as in film noir. SNS _ disco pop _ noir. And that's you know, when you get there, you can go in the link, and the link on the bio, and all the stuff is in there, all the YouTube and Spotify and so on. So just follow us on Instagram. We're focusing on Instagram at the moment still, even though this Twitch has blown my mind.
Yeah.
Really.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think there's potential for it.
Tonight, you know.
I think there's absolutely potential for it as far as not only stuff like this, but I honestly feel like we could take it as far as like streaming shows and stuff like that. And of course, you can find us Instagram at Unheard Sirens Inc. But thank you all for joining us. Thank you guys for bearing with us. Hope you guys enjoyed our conversation here and our insights into our processes and our thoughts behind music in general and the remixes. It's been an awesome time. Thank you, Sebastian, my friend. I know this won't be the last time. We will talk again soon, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Thanks so much. See you soon.